All right, hi everybody. Welcome to Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. This is episode 67, and I am very excited to be here today. Wow, it's been a long week with Chasity Beasley from Uncle Nearest and Alexis Brown from Hennessy. Welcome, ladies, to Celebrating the Brand Ambassador.
Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. It's the first time. Well, I think everybody on the show, for the most part, generally knows each other. But I know you two ladies know each other, and you're in the same town. So we'll dive into that in a little bit. I think that's a first for me. But before we get started, I always like the first question I always like to ask is, what was your unique path into becoming a brand ambassador? Because everybody has kind of their own story. And then what are your roles and responsibilities as a brand ambassador? So, Chastity, I will start with you.
So I've been in the industry for about 20 years now. So I started as a bartender, went to professional bartending school. Yeah, we had a laugh about that earlier when we talked about bartending school. But I found bartending school to be very beneficial. Started training, got a job immediately out of bartending school, but just fell in love with.
You got to tell the story how you got your first job, because I like that story. It's a good story.
Yeah. Well, my first job was in the south suburbs of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Straight out of bartending school, I got the job a week before my 21st birthday, so it was like a really fun place to work at. I bartended with some great girls, learned some great cocktail making skills, which really started my passion in learning about craft cocktails. And so I think the story that you're speaking of is the story when I finally got a job downtown Chicago.
You got discovered.
I got the job. So long story short, so after working on the south side of Chicago for many years at some of the most legendary bars and lounges on the south side, I wanted to make craft cocktails. I discovered Bridget Albert's AOS class at Southern. And networked with some great people, really got inspired, and began searching for a job in downtown Chicago. And during that time, there weren't a lot of women behind the bar. There weren't a lot of brown women behind the bar. There weren't a lot of brown people behind the bar, period.
Wow.
And so I remember going to Mercadito, which was still is a popular spot, but it was a popular hangout spot for a lot of the students in AOS class. And it was busy, and one of my bartender friends saw me in line waiting for a cocktail, and he's like, "Hey, Chaz, what you need?" And there's a guy standing in front of me, and he turns around and he looks me up and down, and he's like, how did you get a cocktail so fast? How do you know these people? I said, well, I'm a bartender. We're in the same class. And he's like, well, wow, I need a bartender for my place. And at this time, I had interviewed for maybe at least 10 interviews. And, just kept getting rejected, and it just took that moment for someone to notice me and say, hey, you obviously have something, And so I went through the interview process, and I got my first job downtown Chicago. And I think that was in 2008, maybe.
Wow. I love that. And then you also learned a lot of your drinks from Bridget Albert, right? Is that how you got? That's how you.
Absolutely. She's mentored many of us in Chicago, and the Academy of Spirits and Fine Service really was a kickoff to the path that led me to where I am now. So I really owe Bridget and many of the legendary bartenders like Lynn House and Debbie Peak and Charles Jolie. They really inspired me to be on this great journey. It's amazing.
Incredible. Also speaks a lot to you, who your character, the fact that you went and sought out the extra, the classes. You went to bartending school. You went to the Southern Wine and Spirits School. That says a lot about who you are as a person. So that's an incredible thing. And then how did you become a pro from there to being a brand ambassador?
Well, we all know that bartending has its toll on you. So after 18 years, I was just tired. My body was tired. I wanted something new, but I wanted to stay in the industry because I love this industry so much. And so I wanted to work for a brand. Started interviewing for brands, and I never would make it to the second interview. And so I would see my peers get all these great jobs. And so I was getting discouraged, you know. I wasn't being seen. You know, I didn't have the experience working for a brand before, but I thought I had all the great qualities to be a brand ambassador. And so I literally just went on Facebook and put it on Facebook. Universe, I'm looking for a brand job. What do you have for me?
Love
and
it.
The amazing Bridget Alberts had a lead for me. And that lead led me to a position with Romano Beverage, who is our distribution team in Illinois. And so at the same time I was signing on with Romano, I heard about Uncle Nearest. And that was in 2018. And my first work event was actually the Uncle Nearest launch party in Illinois. So I felt connected to the brand immediately. I felt passionate about the story. And so although I had a portfolio of spirits and wine to represent, of course, Uncle Nearest was at the top of my list. And so, worked with Romano for 6 months. I part-time at that. I was still working part-time behind the bar. And I remember one day I had a really rough night behind the bar. And I got a phone call from Kate Jerkins, who is our big boss lady, Fawn's right hand. And I'm like, oh, she's calling me, like she's going to offer me a job. I know she is. Yeah. So next morning I called her. Of course, she offers me a job. Before she can get the words out of her mouth, I'm like, yes. Like, yes, I want to work for you. So started with Uncle Nearest as a part-time ambassador. I'm currently full-time. Been with them since 2019, and it has really been an amazing journey.
I love it. And what are your main responsibilities working for them?
So our time, my official title is Brand Steward of Illinois. And that's a / salesperson because my job is to sell as well. So brand awareness is huge for us. Making sure that we share the legacy of who Uncle Nearest was, everywhere, whoever will listen to us, right? But also to sell into bars, restaurants, retailers, train the staff, work with the team to create cocktails, create tasting events, whatever I can do to get the brand in front of the consumer is what my role is.
Love it. Seems like a great role, and I'm looking forward to diving more into it as we keep continuing the conversation. So, Alexis, what is your story?
My story is somewhat similar to Chasity. So funny story. My mother was a brand ambassador, right? Okay, not in the case of what we think a brand ambassador is, but what the agencies call their brand ambassadors, the promo models. My mother was a promo model, and she was very youthful, but she came to me. I was about to turn 21, and she was like, the girls that I'm doing these promos with on the weekends, they're your age. You probably should do this. So she introduced me to, it was Cube Marketing at the time. And, there are a lot of different ones that you can go to, and I have different capacities. But I got my start giving out samples in the grocery store, liquor stores, and being a promo model. I, too, went to bartending school and could use the colored water to do the speed test and make the cocktails.
Yes, exactly.
And got my bartending certificate and went around and was like, hey, I got my certificate. I'm licensed. And everybody was like, okay, you don't have any experience. And we need someone that has experience. So my little certificate meant nothing at the time. And like I said, just like Chasity, was getting a lot of no's, couldn't really get in anywhere. Found my place at my first, after doing the promos, I kept doing the promos. And then I finally landed a spot with a promoter at, it was called Vibe Nightclub. And he gave me a chance, and it's funny because he still owns a couple places. So now I work with him in a different capacity, full circle moment. But he gave me my first shot in nightlife. And while I could not bartend, he did not allow me to bartend. He made me work from the floor up. And when I say the floor up, I meant the coat room floor. So he put me in the coat room. I worked my way up through coat room to shot girl and beer tub, to finally he gave me an opportunity maybe like 2 years later, working in Wrigleyville, fast paced, and was doing some things in Wrigleyville. And in between that time, I wanted to really have a like diverse experience, like coming from working promos, working in nightclubs. I did want to learn restaurants and learn actual cocktails. And Park 52 was where I got that shot with Mark Brooks and Don Millhouse at the time. And that was my first time making cocktails. I remember my interview was, okay, make me a martini, a Manhattan, and a Cosmo. And that was my introduction to cocktails. And as I kind of grew through working in restaurants, I wanted to further my education. And I joined USBG. Was part of USBG, started doing all of these different tastings, and they were mostly downtown or up north. So I started, exploring those places and really finding like the bartending community. And from there, I found, just like Chasity, AOS, Academy of Spirits and Fine Service. And while I did not get to tenure under Bridget, I had Natalia, and Natalia was amazing. And I just learned so much. And that was the first sign of what I would consider a mentor, seeing those ladies, herself, Natalia, Lynn House. I went to something in Miami with, it was like Bar Institute. And I saw Lynn House, and that was the first time that I saw like a woman of color in that educator space, or that, just training space. And I was like, I want to do what she does. And then I found out she worked for Heaven Hills, and I, just modeled that. And my journey to a brand ambassador kind of like started there. That was my first peak of like, this is a thing. Oh my goodness. I was chasing Charles Jolie and trying to be a cocktail competitor. And that was all I had my focus on. And then when I saw that, I was like, no, I want to be an educator. I want to learn as much as I can so that I can bridge this information over, because there's so many people that I worked with that didn't even know about this world. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make things a little bit more accessible. So I want to say that was my start. But me working with Hennessy, this is very new. It's still kind of new to me. I started late December of 2020 during the pandemic, coincidentally. And I think too, like Chasity, I was tired. My body was tired. I was experiencing burnout to the point where I had a really, really bad car accident. And I think that was my wake up call that I can't hustle and grind, and that this is not sustainable. And I need to think about what my other options are and maybe go full throttle with something else.
Wow.
I worked with a lot of brands throughout my bartending career, but I never worked for a brand. And when the opportunity to be the Illinois Hennessy ambassador came about, I kept getting a few little links. People would send me the link and say, hey, you need to apply. And I just went for it. And here we are.
Here you are. And what's your responsibilities there?
So my responsibilities are changing, right? But currently I am the educator mixology ambassador for Hennessy in Illinois and DC. But I am covering more territory because while I was originally with the agency, I'm now with the actual supplier working for Moet Hennessy. So it is, my roles are ever changing, and I'm excited for that.
That's exciting news. Before we go, some people want to say hi. Let's see. Hi, Brett. Thank you for tuning in. And then also some people said hi, Cynthia
Oh,
Davis.
yes, hey.
And also said hello to Chasity as well.
She's a bartender in Chicago here. She has a bartender company.
Exactly. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, Brett and Cynthia. No, these are great stories. I love it. And I hope Lynn knows how many people she's been such a positive influence on and a role model for. Her and I have been doing this almost as long. And I actually need to look her up and ask her. I don't know. Somebody said to me the other day, she's like, Elaine, I think you're the second woman brand ambassador. And then I was thinking, I was like, I don't think so. And I think she might have been before me, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to check in with her to see when she became her brand ambassador. Maybe we came in at the same time, but I'd be in good company. So will you two, the one thing I want to ask, because I think it's a good story, you two met in Chicago and you've known each other for a long time. So tell the story how you two met. Who wants to tell it?
Do you remember, Lexi?
The first time ever?
Yeah.
I must have been at one of your bars.
No,
well, I'll tell the story then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we really connected, but go ahead. You tell
the first time, well, this is my recollection. You tell me if I'm wrong. The first time I met you, I was working an event with the USBG at Taste of the Nation at Navy Pier. And I was managing a table, serving my cocktail. And here comes Lexi, bubbly personality, big bright eyes, super curious about what was going on. Like, how did you get here? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, girl, I was so happy to see her, a brown girl, wanted to be in the industry. I'm like, yes, girl, come on. You need to know this person. You need to know this person. You need to do this, do this. And watching her go from that to where she is today. Lexi, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah. I knew it was at an industry event. I didn't know which one it was, but yes, Taste of the Nation and Andre Cunningham is who introduced. He was like, I met them. Okay, let me I gotta tell this story.
Go ahead.
I was at Tales of the Cocktail, so I didn't know anything about Tales. All I saw was it was in a documentary. I had to write a letter to Dawn Millhouse and her husband, who owned the restaurant I was the lead bartender at, and I had to write them a letter and show them and prove them basically a whole proposal of why they should send me to Tales. And they did it, so I did it on a whim. Filled my whole like I said, didn't know anything about it. Filled my whole schedule up with seminars, had these grand ideas, walking the streets in New Orleans. I run into all these people from Chicago. And I'm like, I'm from Chicago. Meet Andre Cunningham, becomes a pivotal person in my career. And he introduces me he invites me to Taste of the Nation. And he's a big conduit for, where I am too, because he was like, just like Chasity, he's like, oh, you don't know Chasity? You need to know Chasity. Oh, you don't know this person? You need to know this person. So that tight-knit community and me, I think the willingness to want to learn
yes.
But yes, me.
And I haven't saw that.
You never
saw that before from a girl that looked like me.
Right. Wow.
Not to say that the bartender I worked with previously didn't have any passion, but she just had a genuine curiosity to be in the industry. And I was like, yes, girl, there's a place for you here.
And that's just so much about the TV, because you do have to have the desire, right? And then put it out there in the world and to put it in the universe. And then, because people can tell you, hey, you can meet this person. But if you don't take advantage of what they're offering you, it can just pass you by. And next thing you know, that was a wasted opportunity. So it speaks volumes who you are as people. Explains a lot about your very successful careers, because you've taken advantage of all those things and kept rising up. And I'm sure you're now doing it for other people.
Yes.
Which is a big thing. Joe wanted to say, Joe Pierre, Joe wanted to tune in. Sorry, Joe, I think I just didn't say your name correctly. Everyone's incredibly proud of Lexi.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, and there was some Jonathan.
And Jonathan, thank you guys.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. So let's talk about that. Many people, this kind of leads into my next question, because many people do want to be brand ambassadors, right? So They talk about it. You know, they're like, they think it's the next step for them, but not everybody's fit for the job or doesn't have the qualities. I actually give a seminar, and I did it for USBG last year. You know, it was titled "So You Want to Be a Brand Ambassador," and when I broke it down, like exactly what a brand ambassador really does, because everybody sees this stuff, right, and the fun stuff and the glory stuff, and then when I told all the other behind the scenes stuff, they were like, "Oh, I don't want to be a brand ambassador," or like, "I don't think I'm ready for it." So what do you think the qualities that you need to be a great brand ambassador? Chasity, I'll start with you.
There's a lot of qualities. I think you have to be an independent thinker. And you have to really be passionate. To be great at your job, you have to be passionate about your brand. You have to love the brand. You have to eat, sleep, live the brand, right? But aside from that, you know, and I can say, you know, in my experience, what has led to, you know, me being successful, being consistent, sometimes not taking no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just working hard. You know, it's simple. It's really simple. I think. Lex, what do you say?
Yeah, I think that you definitely have to be a good storyteller. You not only, you know, are telling the story about your brand, but you need to be able to cater and, you know, it's not a one size fits all depending on who you're talking to. And in my instance, you know, I'm trying to develop a deeper appreciation for a very underappreciated spirit with cognac and brandy. So I think that the storytelling, the being relatable, or having, especially depending on who you're talking to, right? Buyers is a different conversation, different mask than the bartenders, and doing advocacy work with them. Like, they're different tones, it's a different conversation. So being flexible and, like you said, being an independent thinker, being kind of having an entrepreneurial spirit is important as well.
Yeah.
You're out here on your own sometimes. You got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there isn't a real blueprint to getting your goals accomplished. You kind of have to take it day by day and situation by situation. Is very situational. So you have to be able to ebb and flow. And I mean, just overall what you said too, passion. You have to have passion for who you're representing and for this industry, because again, we're stewards of this.
Mm-hmm.
We are representation of what this industry is. So we have to be good representations of that. I think.
No,
yeah,
I think that's a really great point. Yeah,
you have to be super organized.
Yes. That's a great one.
I'll tell you how many tabs I have open on my laptop right now, how many Google documents I have open, because I have to keep everything together or else my mind. I had never used my Google Calendar, my Apple Calendar until I got this job. So if I don't plug things into my calendar, I will forget.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to learn what I learned. I had to start looking ahead. So like I started printing out my calendar so I could see as a whole. So I could see my entire month. And so I could start Xing off like, okay, these days, and building in the travel day before and after, because I would start booking myself in and then I'd be overbooked. I realized I have to be in this city. Oh yeah, I'm free. It says free. But then I realized, oh no, that's the day I need to travel to the next city. So I'm actually really not free. I need to book that off because there's no flights to get me from here and there. That used to get me in a lot of trouble. So I started looking at things as a whole. Like I would print it out and look at my entire month and then like look 3 months in advance. But yeah, being able to plan and schedule is one of my, I have my Brand Ambassador Academy. That's probably one of the most popular modules that people take to like, oh my God, that helped me so much. Like learning how to create a pre-plan and schedule out, up to 6 months in advance and look at my projects and break them down into pieces. But yeah, that's a really big one. But I think you ladies gave a lot of great points about, there's a lot of different qualities you need. It sounds simple, but it's not. Like passion is great, but if you're not organized and if you don't have the ability to not take no for an answer, and to push back, because it can be really degrading. Not degrading. It's more like, it can be like your ego can get hurt because somebody's like, nope.
You get discouraged.
You get discouraged. That's a great word for it. Yeah. So, and it's, it can be really wearing. So I think you need all those qualities and more, and you ladies definitely have them. I just want to point in there. Definitely pays.
It does. It does. I shared with you, Elaine, earlier that I was going after an account for 3 years that I finally got recently.
Oh yeah, we're gonna dive into that, like when we don't take a no. So let's go, because I think that's a big one that a lot of brand ambassadors I talk to suffer from. But before we get into it, let's talk about. Well, actually, we'll go right there, and then we'll skip back to the other questions. So hearing the word no is definitely one that a lot of people hear, and I have to, when I'm coaching a lot of ambassadors, they're like, well, I said, what do you do? They're like, well, then I'm just like, okay. And they walk away. I'm like, no, that's not how we handle that question. I was like, there are things you can do to continue the conversation. And I was like, it does not mean it's never going to happen. It's just right now it might not happen. So how do you decide if an account, when you hear no, what are some of the tactics you use to kind of continue the conversation, or no, you can come back later? And then also, when do you know if it's still worth pursuing? Chasity, I'll start with you because I know we talked about this. So, like that account for 3 months, how did you know it was still worth pursuing?
Because he didn't give me a no.
Okay. What did he say?
He never said no. He just wouldn't take the meeting.
Oh.
So 3 years worth of going in, emailing, sometimes I didn't get a response, but this time I got a response. And when I took the meeting, he was like, yes, I love the brand, and let's collaborate and let's work together.
That's amazing. That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. But we're a new brand, and so I have to keep doing that. If someone tells me no, I ask, well, can I follow up with you in 60 days, 90 days? Can I follow up with you? And they always say yes. And sometimes they may say later on down the line, I'm still not in the position to do so. And so tactics, how do you say the word?
Tactics.
At tongue-tied that I use, I will develop a relationship with the bartenders.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go and sit at the bar, have cocktails, not my brand. Of course, they don't have it, but I'll develop a relationship that way. So then they know who I am. I'll tell them about the brand. Do your customers ask about us? And so that helps as well. But persistence does pay off, and being consistent with follow-ups are important.
Absolutely. So for you, when do you think is too much? Like I know, I have a tactic where I fly all up with some of my clients, and it's like I won't do it every week. It might be every 2 weeks, or like, because I don't want to be annoying. I just want to kind of send a little, hey, I know we had this conversation. Do you have a rule of thumb, or just?
Well, when they're rude, to be honest, if they are just rude and unprofessional, you get those buyers that they stand you up, and it's part of the job. You're going to have buyers like that. And so if you are continuously doing that, then I will give up.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair.
I won't say I will give up, but I'll have maybe my colleague or my distribution team go in. Like, well, I'm not giving up altogether. It's just that I'm going to take a back seat and let someone else go in now.
Some of the accounts are just not a right fit. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Sometimes, and the buyer, sometimes I've discovered, like, I'll check in like 6 months, because sometimes the buyer's just gone.
That's it.
Yeah. I've had a similar thing where I've had to just kind of like be hands off, specifically with my brand, because they have told maybe the salesperson that we don't want to bring it in because it's going to bring a certain type of crowd. And I'm like, okay. Well, do I keep, push the needle on this, or do I just say, you know what, maybe this isn't a place that we want to be in if you are discriminating against certain people. So, and sometimes it's just not, it isn't worth it.
That's fair play.
Yeah.
On your end. Yeah. It's like, there's like some people just, if they're not going to be your partner with you and they're saying things like, it's like, no, why am I spending this time? That's a whole bigger conversation for a whole nother day. And you only have so much time. And there's a lot more accounts out there that, who want to, have, build that relationship with you. So I think that is fair on your part. And do you ever have a tactic, like when somebody just says no, like just normal no, like, hey, no?
I haven't gotten flat out like Chasity said. I haven't got a flat out like no. It's more so like kind of putting it off. Maybe a little ghosting goes on, and radio silence and persistence. I go in. I'm like she said. I'm making fun with the bartender. They're like, oh, you don't know what this is? Oh, this is. They're doing this, or they want to do this, and then the bartenders get the excitement going, and then it's finally like, well, hey, when they're ready to have a conversation, let me know, and I kind of just go from there. But it's always a way around.
Yeah, no, there is, and I think by talking to the bartenders, you're also gathering knowledge. You're seeing what they're excited about. So when you next time you have the conversation with the buyer, you can use that information that the bartenders told you and like why they like it and all that kind of stuff. Or if you're finding out that customers are ordering or asking for it, as Chasity said, then it's like, hey, your bartender's saying people are asking for this product, or the bartender's saying it could work here and we could actually do some good things.
Yeah, I always case the place first. I always case the place or ask friends, like, have you heard of this place or have you been here? Before I even go, just so that I can know how to approach, because I want to be, like I said, I want to talk your language. So I'm very strategic when it comes to maybe new accounts, or if this is a new account for myself, definitely have to have some strategy around, what is my goal? What do I think that their goal is? So yeah, it's important.
No, absolutely. Account research is key.
I was going to say, looking at the menu beforehand also to see if your brand will even fit, if there's a space. Yeah. And that helps a lot too.
No, absolutely. All those things are great. It's like, great advice about going in, just sitting at the bar before you have one conversation. Like you need to know, you need to see where does it fit, how's it sit. So when you're talking to him, like, hey, I looked at your bar, I saw the menu. This is where I think it can play in here. So they know that you're not just caring about your brand, you're caring about their business. Like I did my research. Yeah. No, those are great points. So we're going to go back into a little bit because Alexis, I want to talk about one of the things that you have created was you are the co-founder of an organization called Causing a Stir. Which is a nonprofit that was based on aiming to elevate the careers of underrepresented through resources, mentorship, and opportunities. I made sure I got that right. I took a clip right off of your thing. So what, as a brand, no, I know this is hard. And we talked about this because Alexis and I happen to be at a judging competition together. So we had a chance to talk about this a little bit because it's not a hard thing. It's not an easy thing to run. Or create, and especially need resources. But what do you think brands can be doing to kind of help organizations like not even just Causing It in general to kind of bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and who don't know? As you said, you found out the Tails existed, and you met Lynn House, and you guys met Bridget Albert, and then you started finding out there was this whole world that existed that a lot of people don't know. Right?
Yeah. I think that, our avenue, I think we had the right idea, and it's funny to bring back the galas. Chasity was actually there when we initially started. So just some background work. Some background on it. Before we became a nonprofit, we were just a resource group. We came together. It was a luncheon that we all had where we, like I said, I'm seeing her at events, she's seeing me, we're seeing other folks, and we're like, you know what, can we come together and like share resources? And if you're working somewhere, I'll come and support you. If you're doing something, let me know so we can, be stronger in numbers at these things. And it's not always just kind of like little dots in the room. We can actually, it's good and bad. We can mob the place and really kind of take advantage of all of these, all of the things that are going on. So it started there. And then we saw that the best way to get brand, I guess, integration or brand support was we had to be a nonprofit. So we went that direction. But again, this is a group of bartenders who have never maybe ran a business, have never ran a nonprofit nonetheless. So a lot of bumping our heads with that. But what we found the best way for them with that worked was them sourcing new talent through us, because we were the kind of like feet on the street, and we knew the people that were looking for opportunities. We knew who was hungry and who was like, hey, I just want to be involved. I just want to be a part. I want to know more, and putting it out there that, hey, this is something that you can utilize. I think that, brand people at the time, they looked to Causing a Stir to be, hey, we don't know. We're going to straight up say, like, we don't know where to funnel or get people. So can you make some recommendations? Can you give us some referrals? And I think that is such a good way. That's my dog. Sorry, in the background. But yeah, I think that is kind of how, just being honest and saying, or there's so many organizations now that are, so it's really no excuse for new talent. But I think stepping out of your comfort zone, stepping out of maybe your account universe, and stepping into different communities, because there are bartenders and bar people all over, but we're looking in very specific places. We're looking at those cocktail bars, but I used to say this when Speed Rack came around. Some of the fastest bartenders I know are in nightlife, and they have no lens to, these type of community places. So stepping outside and knowing where to go, or getting referrals and being open to that. And they may not have the look and feel that, we see or expect from bartenders, but that's where mentorship comes into play. So, not judging books by their cover, and being able to work with and understand, like, these people don't have bios or headshots. And if, that's something that you may request or need from them, maybe helping them and just taking a little bit more time and not just canceling them out because they don't. So
that makes a lot of sense. Or maybe setting up, maybe the brands can actually help people get bios and headshots and help writing, because a lot of brand ambassadors don't have bios and headshots that are well written. But I love it. So do you think in every state, I know you said a lot more organizations have popped up that people could then, as a brand, reach out to, like, oh, I want to be in Chicago, this is Causing Stir. If I'm going to be, I know there's like Brown and Balance, and like,
and you got Kansas City's Best, and you got, all over. I mean, and those are just like, we're just naming off some of the brown and black organizations. I know some Latino organizations that, that are looking for resources and looking to give resources. But I think just talking about it, I think that using, just saying like, hey, if you put it out in the universe, then it'll come back to you. I mentioned it when we were just in California together, what we were doing, and someone gifted 5 scholarships for anyone that I referred to to learn sake and sochu. And like, if you just put it out there, so whatever it is,
do the work, do a little research in each market, like, hey, finding out who's the organization in the community, and say, hey, we'd love to, like, even like you're saying about Speed Rack, those bartenders might not know Speed Rack exists. Right. So it's like, how does Speed Rack, reach them to let those, I told you my personal mission lately, every time I'm at a bar and restaurant, if I meet a talented bartender, anybody that's not, I'm like, do you know what the USBG is? Do you know what Tails is? And they're like, nope. When I told you, I'm going to start carrying around a laminated card, like, here's start passing.
No, I think that it's just, it's work. It is still work. That's part of community work. So I think that every brand or someone should have an outreach department that is trying to find new talent, where it's not just like, hey, we're hiring for this job, do you know anybody? It's like, hey, we're actively looking for talent, whether it is not, full time, but even part time, just to have more opportunities within. And I know that that's something that Moa Hennessy is doing in this new model. We are looking, that is a thing. So I think that just it's modeling, it's back into the structural models of what do you care about and how are you achieving that goal to get better
absolutely.
at it.
And the good news is I hear a lot of brands talking like this is definitely something that's becoming a center of their focus, is bringing more people in. Chasity, I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to that about what brands
do. I love what Alexis and Cosmister have done in building our community of bartenders here in Chicago and giving them resources. It's extremely important to give back to the community. And, both of us, whenever we have opportunities to mentor someone else, we take it. Uncle Nearest, as a brand, we are implementing a program called Together We Rise that will be rolling out in the third quarter, reaching into our community. And so those are something I'm very passionate about. I have bartenders that I constantly talk to, work with, hire events, that just have a thirst for knowledge and a passion for the industry. And so I'm happy always to be able to support the mentorship. It's important.
No, which I think is great. It's being available, providing mentorship, and knowing the right people. And not everybody's going to take you up on it, right? Because not everybody has the drive or the passion. I've met a lot of people. They say, "Hey, I want to be a brand ambassador," and I leave it up to them. I'm like, "Here's my calendar. Here's a link to my calendar. Schedule an appointment. Yeah. I will talk to you. You want 30 minutes? You want an hour? Let's sit down and talk." And then I'll never hear from them again. And I'm like, it's up to you. I can't drag you. You can say you want it, but you got to take the first step. So I think it's more about getting information, and the people who do want to go for it, they will. Yep. They will definitely come to the table. They just need to know it exists.
Yes.
No, for sure.
They gotta know. So you ladies were very lucky to have people like Lynn House and things of that nature, Bridget, in your market. So we just started talking about Uncle Nearest is such a unique company led by a woman who Fawn. I'm such a fangirl of Fawn Weaver. Tell us some, I know you expressed what a great company is to work for. So tell us something unique, but you guys have some really unique philosophies of the company, which makes it such a special place to work. So can you expand on that?
Well, we have a set of guiding principles that we are to keep near and dear to us, when we're in the market. But one of the things that I appreciate most about working for a leader like Fawn is her candor. She's very candid. It's a quality that her and I both share. We're very direct, say it like it is, whether someone likes it or not, And so she has created that culture within the company, radical transparency, to be candid with each other, to allow us to be independent thinkers. It breeds success to be able to be passionate about something and be able to share your ideas with one another, but also embrace your differences. I've never really felt like I had a boss in the past where I can just call up and speak from a sincere, genuine space about anything if I needed to. She has that open door policy. And what CEO do you know like that? I don't know.
That's amazing. No, I don't know any. I work with a lot of people.
Yeah, and so that makes it very special. I don't. She's not just a boss. She's a true leader, and she's very passionate about diversifying the industry, making it more inclusive. And I couldn't be more honored to work for someone like Fawn.
Amazing. No, I every time I see her speak, I know she's speaking somewhere. I'm like, I'm in. I admire her so much. I'm like, oh, she is the badass bitch that I always dreamed of. She's incredible. Amazing speaker too. So that's incredible. What an honor to be able to work for a company like that. I think that's incredible. All right. So we're going to go back to business a little bit. We're going to talk about getting in front of the buyer, because this is really one of the biggest challenges I think a lot of brand ambassadors have, because you might not know the contact within the bar, going there. So do you have any? I've heard some different tactics over the course of this this podcast of what people do to find out the buyer's name. or just to get that meeting. So I love to hear like some of your ladies, like how do you meet the buyer? What are some of the unique things you might have done to actually get their information and get an appointment? I don't know, Alexis, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I kind of already get like some insight because I'm typically going or working with my distributor, so they know who is buying from them. I work very, very closely with the distributor to find that information out. So they'll give me that now.
You're lucky.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, most people don't get that information. They don't even get their distributor at all. So
really? Yeah. No, they. So I guess I am lucky then, because they have pushed. They have pushed for us to have really good relationships with our distributor teams and make sure that we're working hand in hand, and that they know that they have me, brand ambassador, as a resource to do education and kind of do that. So I might not be the best person to ask this because I already got the blueprint.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to ask Chasity this question. I'm going to go back to you about the relationship with the distributor, because you are lucky. A lot of people, they don't get that information from the distributor. So you're very lucky.
Well, I could say I'm lucky too, because if I need that information and my distributor has it, they will share it with me.
Okay.
Let me see.
They always do it in the beginning, though, because I have this theory, and I'm pretty sure I've talked to a few sales reps. A lot of salespeople are very, very protective of their accounts, and they're very wary of brand ambassadors because they're afraid they're going to ruin the relationship with their account. So it takes a while for them to start giving you that information. I don't know if you experienced that yourself.
Okay, I hope none of my distribution team is watching, but but no, I can say okay, sure. But I guess maybe now, because I'm 4 or 5 years in,
right.
And also because I actually worked for a distribution team before Uncle Nearest, so I already had a relationship with them. We do work, closely, just like Alexis said. We have to, we have to be cohesive. We have to be a team, because sometimes a buyer will tell you one thing and tell the distributor one thing, as if they don't expect us to communicate with each other. Right?
There's not other brand ambassadors who don't. They don't have that relationship. So let's talk about how do you build that relationship with the distributor, like that reputation where you're working cohesively with them. So what are your practices for working? So you go into an account and you want to start, pitching your brand, because your distributor obviously has multiple brands in their portfolio. Right. So getting them to give you that, hey, I want to have this meeting. Do they set it up for you, or are they doing the introduction, or how is that working?
In my experience, it goes both ways.
Okay.
If I can walk into an account that might be a new account, they don't have any distribution there. I introduce myself, introduce my brand. And if it's a green light, if it's a yes, I make the introduction to my distribution team.
Gotcha.
And then we build that relationship together. Versus if it is an account that they already have distribution in, and now is the time to discuss Uncle Nearest, they'll reach into me and schedule the meeting, and we go from there. So it's a team effort,
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot, and that's great. That's amazing. You get to do that. It's amazing you're able to have that. Let them know, and you're building a relationship. I've heard horrors or people like, I never hear back from the sales rep, or they have no because they're small. If you're a really small brand, your distributor doesn't pay attention to you at all. And I know the Nearest, I think it's like in the middle. You're small, but you're getting
we're
big.
Small, but we're big. Yeah.
Yeah, small, but the reputation is very, 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 very big. Yeah. So how do you, so if you're building a relationship, how do you make, what are some tactics you use maybe to make the sales reps an advocate for your particular brand? Like, they're really, so when they're not with you, they can talk about your brand. Alexis, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's that education. Like I said, I think that specifically Hennessy has done a really good job as a brand, but some people don't even know that it's a cognac. there are people that say, "Oh, I don't drink cognac, I don't drink brandy, I drink Hennessy," and I'm like, okay. So getting the distributors educated, so that they are kind of like stewards of the brands that they are selling is important, and having them feel a bit of empowerment, even with cocktails, and saying like, "Hey, I don't see any cognac on your menu. Can I, it will be really good all year round, not just in winter or fall. It has characteristics." So getting them a bit more trained and educated is an aspect that I take, and we have been investing a lot of time into that, getting them better acquainted with the actual spirit and understanding how it's made, what it's made from, and how to use, telling their accounts how to use it. And then if that's not enough, then I come in as a resource and do a full training with everyone at their account, but educating their buyers a bit more on what it is, and just saying, "Hey, it's Hennessy." Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Hennessy is not alone in that. I mean, people think that I've seen people order Patron, and the bartender's like, "We don't carry Patron, but here's the other tequilas," and they're like, "I don't want tequila, I want Patron." Yeah, and not knowing.
Yeah.
The consumer is not always sharp. They don't always know exactly what they're drinking. They just know the brand. That's why brand recognition is very, very powerful in what we do. Chasity, I don't know. You have anything like? How do you get them to like sell? I mean, they probably have a few whiskeys in their portfolio. How do you get them to sell?
Education, just like Lexi said. Education, incentives always help. But I think people naturally, when they hear our story, they're inspired. They want to share it. And so in the past, we have taken bartenders and buyers down to our distillery. We actually do have an upcoming tour called our Legacy Tour. My colleague and I will be taking a group of almost 60 people down to Shelbyville, and we will visit the home where nearest whiskey and the original location for the Jack Daniel's distillery. We will tour the cemetery where they're buried, and then we will end the tour at our distillery. So when I did this tour back in 2019, of course the distillery wasn't there yet, or was being built and whatnot. But when I walked on the ground where they're buried, I just had all this emotion. Even when I do staff trainings, there's this video that I show, and I cry every time. I'm always like in the background, because it's so moving. And whenever I speak to people about it, with my distributor partners, they always leave like, "Oh, I learned something new. It's great to hear the story come from you." So most time, giving them tools, giving them that inspiration, gives them that to go out there and sell something. Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm assuming you guys also cater the information for the distributor, because they don't need to know, the fermentation, they need to know, but they don't need to know like the technical side. So you sound like you focus a lot just on the backstory, and then here's the liquid. Am I wrong? Go ahead.
Both are important, because what makes our whiskey so special is specific, the Lincoln County process. And so,
right. Yes, that's
whatnot. That is part of the story. And
yeah.
So those things are important. And sometimes you will get a buyer that wants to know, or what level is your barrel charred at, or, what's your mash build, so it is very important to have those tools in your little tool belt.
Yes.
Pull them out when those buyers are asking those questions.
Absolutely. No, I get that. I was just going to say, I know sometimes I've made the mistake of being at a GSM when I was younger, and then giving like the full on, so in heresy, and going too far, and watching our eyes glaze over. And then you realize, like, oh, they just need to know, like, here's the 4 facts I need to say about this brand, and like, what's the cocktails, and like, what's the price, and like, that's the story. But they need to know the story so they feel passionate about it. But it's like when it comes to like, here's the 4 facts you need to like be able to repeat to any buyer, and then you need this information. Just somebody ask for the level forward char barrel and why it matters, but that's the most important thing. I mean, like for you, like I wanted to dive into this. So with cognac, especially because you work for a big brand, and it's well known, as you said, people just order Hennessy. But for the, it's you don't see it all the time. You don't see it on every cocktail menu. So is there a disconnect in America and just in general about the trade's education on cognac and like how it can be utilized? Like you said, some people just think it's a winter. Like, where do you see? Why do you think that is?
Media. I think that the media has portrayed, cognac as just kind of like a hip hop brand, or your grandfather's cognac that you drink out of a snifter by the fireplace with a cigar, and that is kind of like created just a one-track mind of cognac, and people perceive it very singularly, and it is what I would argue one of the most versatile spirits. I always tell, like, one of the first things that I do, I take any gin cocktail and swap out gin for cognac, which was probably how it was originally made before phylloxera anyway, and the whole cocktail craze in the UK. And Daniel de Oliveira says this all the time. It's either just as good or better with cognac in it, because it gives that complexity. And when you think about fruit, I don't think that people realize this is a fruit-based spirit. If it's a fruit-based spirit, it's going to give an array of flavor, an array of characteristics that can be played in cocktails any type of way. So I kind of like lead with that and say, well, if you like this, then you would love this. If you like Scotch, you will love one of our other marks. And I think that it's just so many misconceptions around cognac specifically, and brandy as a category in general. So, I think that
I love that you make an association, like if you like this, because it does help people to make that connection for themselves. Like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So it's a great way of bringing something that's familiar to them into the table, so they can, it's not so foreign.
Yeah, and I think that they think that VSOP is just a better or more matured version of VS, and XO is just an upgraded version of VSOP, and that is totally not true. They have so many different characteristics, and like I said, it's just a lot of misconceptions, and just like lack of education and training around it. And that's why I'm proud to be an educator in this sector, to change perspectives, to open people up to it, and just that was why I chose to work for this particular brand. Like I said before, I work with a lot of brands, but never for a brand. And I think I saw that hole, and especially within trade advocacy. So though I feel the bartenders are the people that are putting those placements on there. They're the ones that are making the cocktails. And if I can help influence their decision making to maybe bring cognac back, I'm on a renaissance right now, trying to bring the brandy renaissance back, for what was a original spirit used in cocktails. I want to see more of it on menus, and I think that people just need to know how to work with it, and that's something that advocacy comes in with.
Good for you, and Hennessy is very lucky to have you. And I'll tell you a funny story. I'll never forget, and this was a brand ambassador, Boo Boo. I was working Diageo, obviously, for many years, but I started off with Hennessy. LVMH was part of the portfolio, and Diageo was part of that. I really like cognac a lot. I really do. I could go down that rabbit hole all day. So I remember somebody was asking me, what is your favorite product? And this morning I was just working at Diageo, I didn't have that in my portfolio. and I think it was a press person. I said cognac, and I said Hennessy. And my boss was like kicking me. He's like, "Yeah, that you don't work for that brand." I was like, "Yeah," I was being too honest.
You were being honest. Yeah,
I was being honest, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was a mistake of my young, naive self, like being too honest." Like I'm like, I really love cognac, and he's like, "Yeah, but you don't work for a cognac." I was like, "You're right. I probably should not be saying that right now." Silly me. Did I not say? Yeah. That I like whiskey. So yeah. Mistakes you make that you should not make. Always only talk about the things that you work for. Yeah, it's very obvious, but sometimes it's true. Don't always get there. All right. So I wanted to talk about things. We talked about actually, I think we already covered one of these questions. So this has been great. We've covered so many things in such a great amount of time. We've been so efficient and so good. I could hang out with you ladies all day, but I know our audience would not. They just get bored of me, not you two. I like to always end our conversation with any words of advice, because as we talked about before, people want to be brand ambassadors, and become. I just admitted like one of the mistakes I've made that we should never do. So I don't know, any words of advice besides loving your brand. That's an obvious one. So you have to love the brand. But if anybody wants to become a brand ambassador, no, actually, I'm going to change the question. If anybody is a brand ambassador and there's any words of advice, like something you might have made a mistake here and there, or you wish somebody had told you before, that you could give advice to somebody else so they don't do the same thing. You don't have to admit to your mistake, or you just say, "Hey, here's some words of advice. To be a really great brand ambassador, I advise this and don't do this." Or sorry, I made it complicated.
Okay. I have one.
You have one? Go for it.
Have a pre-plan. Write it down. Like, if you don't do it the night before, the day of, when you get up and you're figuring out your day, like, write it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to get distracted in the market. It's so easy to, have a drink and some lunch and you get caught up talking to the bartender and you get off schedule and you're like, what am I doing? So having a pre-plan works.
Yes, I am a big fan of the pre-plan. That is great recommendation. Alexis, you?
Yeah, mine is just overall, and it might be a little selfish too, because it's really just about what your trajectory is. So it's one thing to be a brand ambassador and, you have this great job and it has all of these amazing benefits and all of these incentives and you're in it. But I think that anyone who's a brand ambassador now, just because you can get stuck doing the same thing, I think that having some intention and purpose for where you want your career to go within that brand. Brand ambassador is not the end all be all. And, my eyes were open from coming from that judging that spirits competition this past week, is that there are many different facets within this industry. And this is another stepping stone. If we thought bartending was a stepping stone to be a brand ambassador, just think of where you want your career to be, because sometimes you will fall into representing a brand so much that, are you thinking about yourself and your own brand and what you want to take from this? And it is a symbiotic relationship. So my advice is understand it's a symbiotic relationship and understand the full picture and scope of why you're doing what you're doing, the why.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is great. I'm a big fan of building your personal brand, having a goal of what you want to do next. And the symbiotic relationship is true. It can't just be about you. There's a brand that's paying for you. Like, you're out there, you need to represent the brand, but you need to be thinking like, oh, and you said you experience it, judging, meeting all different people and seeing there's lots of different career paths. Because it's not always clear. Because the question always is, we just talked about in the last show, is like, what do you do after being a brand ambassador?
Yeah. I didn't think about that when I first started.
Yeah. So it's not always clear. I mean, I don't know. Alexis, do you know like what you think you want to do?
Yeah, I think I know what I want to do. And I think that that's what prompted me to want to become a brand ambassador and get the resources. Like, I eventually, I want to taste. I want to be on a tasting committee. I want to blend. I want to work with eau de vie and, develop my palate to, essentially maybe one day make my own blend of cognac. I have very, very big aspirations.
I love
You
it.
always have, as you should.
Yeah.
That's why you are where you are, because
Yeah.
you have big aspirations. You got to have aspirations and then follow through.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that that's my very big one is to get so good and to get so knowledgeable about this category that I'll be able to maybe do my own blends and maybe make some that are catered to a Chicago girl from the South Side.
I love it. I absolutely. Chasity, any thoughts? I don't know if you. Your goals.
I have lots of thoughts. But no, I do have a bigger picture of where I want to grow with Uncle Near's and in other projects as well. So this like Lexi said, this is just a stepping stone to the next level.
Yep. I love that, and it's good to have that, because it is if you don't know what your goal is and like next step, it doesn't have to be forever. Just like, this is what I want to do next year. Then you know what meetings to have, what conversations to have with people, and next thing you know, like what classes to take, and you keep stepping up your goal. Well, ladies, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with me. It's been a pleasure really getting to know both of you a bit better. So thank you. And thank you everybody who tuned in for joining us on Celebrate the Brand Ambassador.
Cheers!
Cheers, everybody, and have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. Have fun, ladies.
All right, thank you. Keep in touch. Bye. Bye, ladies.